David and Jeremy. The Redcliff and Guinea Ridge Railway is one of the UK's busiest non-urban passenger railway networks. Many passenger and freight trains travel all over the network every single day, except Christmas Day of course, and certain engines are suitable for certain jobs. For example, whilst Robert, the white intercity passenger train, almost always operates passenger services, Freddie, the blue SP6 American freight locomotive, is almost always used on freight trains. But some locomotives, like David, the yellow battery electric mainline engine, can be used on both passenger and freight trains. But with all these passenger and freight trains, it's important that they stay safe whilst they're running up and down the tracks. That's why every train needs a conductor on board to monitor the train's progress and keep it safe if anything goes wrong. But no conductor is the same. Some are casual and don't only focus on the important parts of their job, and they like to have nice long chats as they travel along with the engines. But others are very strict and take their job very seriously. They give lots of orders to the engines and do not tolerate any tomfoolery of any kind. And they don't even like to have chats with the engines because they say it distracts them. And one evening, David was about to find out this sad fact. Mr. Eric, the manager of the railway, had a special job for any engine willing to volunteer. This job would be with Conductor Jeremy, the strictest conductor on the railway. Good evening, all of you. I have a special job for any one of you to do tomorrow. There is a special mixed goods train that needs to be taken all over the railway, picking up and dropping off freight at each station, starting at Redcliff and ending at Guinea Bridge Junction. Whoever volunteers to do it will be working with Conductor Jeremy tomorrow. So, any volunteers? All the engines shuddered in fear. They knew how strict Conductor Jeremy was because they had all worked with him. Well, all that is, except for David. He was the only engine on the railway who had not yet worked with Conductor Jeremy, so he did not know how strict he was. Therefore, he was a little confused as to why the other engines were shuddering. I'll do it, Mr. Eric. Excellent. Thank you, David. Dennis, Freddie and Peter will do all of your regular jobs tomorrow. But for the rest of you, it's going to be the normal work schedules for you. Now get some sleep, everybody. It's going to be a very busy day for us all tomorrow. I'm going back to the station now to lock up for the night, and then I'll be heading off home to have dinner with my family. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow. And with that, Mr. Eric walked off back up the track to lock up for the night and head home. But David was still curious as to why all the other engines had been shuddering. I don't know why you were all just shuddering in fear over this job. It's only a freight train. Well, David, it may only be a freight train, but seriously, David, you do not know what you are up against. Sir Callum's right, you know. Conductor Jeremy Jenkins is the strictest conductor on the railway. He will complain if you're going too fast, too slow, too roughly, you name it. He will just complain and complain, and then he will complain some more. And I have not known a single time when he has given even the tiniest smile. Yes, everything Alan is saying is true, and that's not even the worst part. You see, Conductor Jeremy Jenkins is Mr. Eric's, but before Peter could finish, David interrupted him. Well, I think you are all just being silly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get some sleep now. I don't want to be tired for my special jog tomorrow, and I suggest you do the same. Good night, everyone. Don't say I didn't warn him. The next morning, David got up early to go and collect his freight train from the rolling stock yard. But as he was carefully backing down onto it, he noticed a stern-looking man standing beside the track. David wondered if he was Conductor Jeremy. Well, if he was ever going to find out, he would have to ask him. "Good morning, kind sir. You must be a Conductor Jeremy." The stern man continued to eye him suspiciously. Yes, this will be a first for me. I've never worked with you before." "As nor have I, Mr. Jenkins." "Please, young yellow engine, remind me of your name, will you?" "But of course, sir. David's the name. Heavy hauling's my game." "Well, David, I'm afraid that we will be having no games on this journey today. I do not approve in such a dangerous environment. Now come along, chop chop, let's get you ready to go. Quickly, or we'll be late."
It was only a catchphrase. I didn't mean it literally. Once all the goods were on board, the yard manager made a call to central control, whilst Conductor Jeremy went and spoke to David.
"Now then, David, I want you to complete this job quickly and quietly, with no roughhousing or dilly-dallying. This means no high speeds, no rough travelling, and no disobeying any of my orders whatsoever. Do you understand me?" Yes, Conductor Jeremy." Oh dear, maybe the others were right. He does seem like a difficult man to please. After that, Conductor Jeremy walked down to the other end of the train and clambered onto the very rear of the last wagon, where the emergency brake and tail lamp were located. If anything wrong during the trip, Conductor Jeremy could apply the emergency brakes, and the tail lamp was there to warn other trains from a distance. "You may proceed." David looked down at the points, but they were still against him. "You may proceed." David didn't know what to do. He knew if he tried to go over the points that were against him, he could potentially derail himself, and then he'd be in so much trouble with Mr. Eric, but at the same time, he didn't want to upset Conductor Jeremy. "What is taking so long?" I'm just trying to let my hydraulics neutralized. You know, it's very dangerous to run with high-pressure hydraulics."
Well, hurry up! We do not have all day.
Ugh, I don't know, these lousy modern batteries on wheels. Finally, the points changed, and David was cleared to proceed, and with a short blast from his horn, David slowly began to pull the train out onto the main line. But as they travelled along the line, Conductor Jeremy made the trip very difficult. "You're travelling too slow, we'll be late." "Now you're running too fast, slow down, you'll damage the cargo, or even worse, come off the tracks." They had only gone 15 minutes into their journey when all of a sudden David spotted a cow on the line. He had no choice but to stop. This did not please Conductor Jeremy one bit. David tried to gently move forward, revving his engine in the hopes the cow would move. But the cow just flicked its tail and went on grazing.
Why have we stopped? I'm sorry, Mr. Jenkins, sir, but there is a cow blocking the line. Well, get rid of her! I did try, sir, but she just won't budge. Oh, let me do it. And with that, Conductor Jeremy climbed onto David's roof and gave a great thud on David's manual horn override button.
This frightened the cow, and it bolted straight back into the field. Now that is how you tell a cow to move out of your way. How did this man become a conductor? Once Conductor Jeremy was back on board, they set off again up the line. A little later on, they arrived at their first delivery stop, Knutford Airport Station. Here, some of the goods were to be unloaded, taken through the terminal building, and loaded onto an airplane to be shipped to Northern Ireland. However, Dennis was already at the platform collecting passengers, so David pulled slowly up to the base of the control tower to wait his turn. What is it this time? The platform's occupied, Mr. Jenkins, sir. We'll just have to wait our turn. Oh no, we don't! And he radioed up to the control tower. Hello? Yes, this is Conductor Jeremy of train number 7939. Yes, clear the platform this instant! Poor Dennis was forced to pull his train out of the station. And David slowly rolled in. I'm sorry about Conductor Jeremy, Dennis. Dennis pulled up just after the station. We did tell you he was trouble. Later, they had completed most of their delivery stops, and they were now travelling through the unfinished Edendale station. As they did so, David gave off a sigh. Compressed air hissed from his hydraulics as he did so. Nearly there, nearly there. He was glad that the job was close to completion. But just at that moment, he all of a sudden saw that a landslide had blocked the trucks. He stopped just in front of it. David to Central Control. Come in, Central Control. Do you read me? Over. Reading you loud and clear, David. What's the problem? There's been a landslide near Gamebridge Junction. It's blocking the tracks and I will not be able to deliver my special freight train if it's not cleared. Please send assistance to clear it. Over. No problem, David. We'll send assistance right away. Over and out.
What on earth is going on? Why have we stopped again?
I'm sorry, Mr. Jenkins, sir, but there is a landslide on the tracks.
Well, push it off the tracks then! But Conductor Jeremy, this is a landslide, not a cow or another train like before. If I try to push it off the tracks, I'm going to be going anywhere. I don't care! I'm in charge and I say push the landslide off the tracks. But Conductor, what about... No buts! I'd order you to move this landslide right now. We are running very late.
David had finally had enough. Conductor Jeremy Jenkins had been so rude and bossy from the start. In fact, he was so angry that he lurched backwards and overheated. This only made him even more angry. Conductor Jeremy Cameron Jenkins! You've been nothing but rude and bossy to me since we started this journey, and I do not like it one bit. In fact, you've made me so angry I've now overheated and it's all your fault. Now I'm going to have to radio Central Control again for some spare parts, and we will not be able to continue unless I am repaired. We're going to have to wait quietly for the spare parts to arrive and this landslide to be cleared. Okay? Conductor Jeremy frowned at David.
My fault? This wouldn't have happened if you weren't such a disobedient engine. We wouldn't be in this mess if you'd just done as I told.
Well, excuse me, but we'd been an even bigger mess if I had tried to push the landslide off the tracks. And I would have derailed and we'd be even later.
I still don't care. You should have listened to me.
No, you should have listened to me. No, you should have listened to me. No, you should have listened to me. As their argument continued, they started to throw insults at each other, until at last Peter arrived with Colin the maintenance crane. Mr. Eric had also come to see what the problem was. What is going on here? Breakfast? Dude, that's just a vine. Well, I'll tell you what's going on here. This disobedient engine of yours refused to push this landslide out of the way, and then he lurched backwards and overheated. Now he can't move, and it's all his fault. No, Mr. Eric, that's not true. Conductor Jeremy has been very rude and bossy to me all day, and when he asked me to push this landslide out of the way, I told him that I might come off the tracks, but his reply was, I don't care. And at that point, I had just about enough of his rudeness and bossiness, and I got so angry that I unintentionally lurched backwards and overheated. And that's how we got into this mess and how our argument started. And it's not my fault, it's his fault. Jeremy, is what David telling me true? Because I don't know why, but I've got the strangest feeling that he's telling the truth and you're the Pinocchio. Me? A liar?
You must be pulling my leg! I would never ever tell a lie of any kind whatsoever. I mean, look at my nose. Is it growing longer?
Alright, fine, it isn't. But still! No, he's not telling the truth. Don't listen to him, Mr. Eric. He's not telling the truth. No, 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 he's not telling the truth. That's enough, you two! I know very well who the liar is here. It's Jeremy. What? Me? But how did you know? Because David is quite right. If he had tried to push this landslide out of the tracks, he would have derailed. And if he did, you would both be in an even bigger mess than you are now. And the words, I don't care, tell me that you were not listening to David, and that you were being rude and bossy to him. You were the one who made him angry, and you were the one who made him overheat. And on top of this landslide we've got to deal with, now David will not be able to deliver his important freight train on time. And this is not David's fault, it's your fault. It just goes to show that strictness is not the way forward every time. You need to apologise to David.
Me? Apologise to this rusty yellow hunk of junk? I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
Jeremy, do it or else you're fired!
Fire me? You wouldn't dare!
Oh, I would. The only reason I hired you in the first place is because you're my cousin!
Conductor Jeremy's your cousin, sir?
That's right, David. Back in the day when I was only a boy, Jeremy here would be strict, rude and bossy to me all the time. And as an 8-year-old, I hated him. When I took over the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway back in 2009, my parents forced me to hire him because they kept saying that he was my cousin. But I will fire him if he doesn't apologise to you. You know what, Alex? You're right. David, I'm sorry I was so rude and bossy to you. I was wrong. You would have derailed if you had tried to push this landslide off the tracks. Please, can you forgive me? Of course I forgive you, Jeremy. But do you really mean it? Of course I do, David. I've learnt my lesson now. Well, that's all very good, but let's not stand around here any longer. We have a freight train to deliver. Yeah! So that was that. The landslide was quickly cleared, and David was quickly repaired. And as soon as everything was ready, they set off once again. At last, they made it to Guinea Bridge Junction Station. Half an hour late, but safely in one piece. And the workers quickly and carefully unloaded David's train. And afterwards, David set off home. He couldn't wait to tell the others all about his day with Conductor Jeremy. Speaking of whom, Conductor Jeremy is now the most casual conductor on the railway. He only needs reminding of the words, "You're fired," to not be strict with anybody. And from that day to this, he has never or will never be strict to any engine or colleague ever again. Outdated but reliable. Summer is a very busy time of year for the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway. All the tourists visit the railway from outside the local area each summer. They always want to get the the best out of the warm and wonderful weather. Scattered around the railway are several good patches of grass which the local farmers lease out to the local borough council as picnic spots for these tourists to have their picnics on. But because there are so many of these picnic spots, it means the railway is a very popular destination for all the picnickers using them. This would mean very crowded trains and very unhappy passengers around this time of year if it weren't for a very special passenger train reserved exclusively for these picnickers. Every year, on every weekend and school holiday from around early April to the end of September, this special passenger train picks up its passengers at Guinea Bridge Junction and takes them all over the railway to Redcliff and back, stopping at the best picnic spots along the way. Mr. Eric has named this train the Picnic Flyer. The train is usually double-headed by the railway's two steam locomotives, Ethan and Sir Callum. After all, the passengers do like a nice ride behind steam locomotives every once in a while, and they would always pull it even on days when they didn't feel well. Nope, we mustn't disappoint our passengers, is what they would say every time one of them were ill and said and the fitters said that they couldn't work, they were too ill to work. Then they would go up and pick up their passengers at Guinea Bridge Junction and take them in their coaches to the best picnic spots on the railway. And when they stopped to drop them off, they would say, "Please be all ready when we come back for you, otherwise you might miss your connecting train back home and that would never do for you." One day, neither of them felt very well. They were both short of steam and they both felt rather stuffed up. It was early afternoon and they had both just got back from one of their runs, and they were both feeling very exhausted. Their mechanics had been called up to Broombridge to find out what was wrong with them. "Good afternoon, Sir Callum and Ethan. Now then, what seems to be the problem?" "Well, Toby, neither of us can get our breath properly. We have both been wheezing like mad around the railway today, and we both feel rather stuffed up." I know what the problem is. You both need new boiler tubes. However, there is just one problem with filling you with new ones. And what is that? We can't spare you at present, of course. Well, of course we can't. We mustn't disappoint the passengers. Just try to keep going for now, and we will give you both a new set of boiler tubes once the Picnic Flyer finishes for the year at the end of September. Toby paused. He looked left, he looked right, then he put his hand up to his mouth and started to whisper. "Keep this within your smoke boxes, will you? But I have heard rumours about a new steam engine. We need one because if you both failed and couldn't pull the Picnic Flyer, we'd really be in trouble." He then gave both of their smoke boxes a good clean. This helped a little, but they both soon felt poorly again. But nonetheless, they coupled back up to the train and headed off up the line. The run went pretty much as smooth as it can possibly be. They had lost only a few minutes on their journey, but it didn't matter. When they got back, though, Toby gave their tubes another good clean. And their smoke boxes too. They had just finished, and Sir Callum and Ethan were just about to leave for their last run of the day when Peter rolled in with the freight train. "Hello, old-timers. Feeling it again? Out of path?" "Nothing of the sort. This is routine maintenance." "Tell you what, You're both getting old. Us diesel and electric engines must all agree to take care of you two steamers in case you break down. Humph! That won't be until the day pigs fly. And with that, the two steam engines left the station on their last run of the day. Sir Callum couldn't stay cross for long though. It was a lovely evening. Couldn't be better, couldn't be better. The train began to climb the Beck-Strait flyover, but the engines didn't mind. We've plenty of steam. We'll be up in a couple of puffs. But soon, their puffs turned to wheezes. They were hissing and panting and their valves were leaking steam. It's not so easy after all, but we'll still manage. At last, they reached the top of the Beck-Strait flyover. They were both very relieved. They can now coast down the other side again. They carried on with their journey until at last they reached Redcliff station and stopped in the platform. Then their fireman examined them both carefully, whilst anxious passengers waited for news. At last, the news came from down the line. So Callum and Ethan are going to take you back to Guinea Bridge Junction, but they might be late, so 2 other engines are coming to help. Don't worry, you'll still catch your connecting train. Peter and Freddie were very pleased to be helping out. Poor old Sir Callum and Ethan, what a shame, you've both broken down. Yes, indeed you have. This is the day. This is the day.
Like a sheep, I see.
Are you ready?
Is that all you can do?
Yes, I am. And away they went. When they reached the junction, the cavalcade split up. All the passengers in a hurry to catch their connection back home got on board Sir Callum and Freddie's train and they took the shortcut to Guinea Bridge Junction. An extra coach was added onto Ethan and Peter's train and all the other passengers stayed on board. Fancying me rescuing Ethan. This is the day, poor old engine, poor old engine. But Ethan still had plenty of steam left. His valves sounded worse than they were. He and his fireman had their own little joke ready. They waited until they reached a flat, straight section of line. Now! Exclaimed the fireman, and even pulled the train so hard they raced down the tracks at a ridiculous speed. The noise echoed everywhere. When they reached the last station, all the passengers cheered for them. What happened? Asked the boy to his father. They don't usually need both a steam and a diesel engine. Well, son, Peter here broke down. Ethan had to help him and bring him back here. Ethan chuckled. He and his driver's trick had worked. Fiddlesticks! Ethan wheezed alongside him. Poor old engine. It's no good, Peter. I may be outdated, but I'm certainly still reliable. Soon after, Ethan was waiting for Sir Callum at Nufford Airport. Sir Callum had left with Freddie a few minutes before Ethan and Peter had arrived, and had taken them back to Redcliff, having played on a joke on him too. Now he and Ethan had to take the coaches back home to Redcliff with them. Hi, Sir Callum. How did it go? Oh, you should have seen the look on Freddie's face when I surprised him with my strength. It was hilarious, and I heard about your joke too. Yeah, it was hilarious for me too. We taught those youngsters a jolly good lesson, didn't we? Indeed we did, Ethan, indeed we did. and the two steamers puffed off home with their train. They continued to soldier on for the next 2 months until the picnic flyer train had finished for the year. Then they were stored out of service until at last their brand new boiler tubes finally arrived. Mr. Eric proudly presented them. Oh dear, someone squashed them. Don't worry, Sir Callum. These tubes are something very special indeed. You will both soon see. At first, the other engines teased them about their new flat boiler tubes and called them the Flat Tube Brothers, but they soon proved to be useful. The new boiler tubes were specially manufactured and they could make puffing much easier. We feel stronger and faster than ever before, they said. Even Peter seemed impressed. I can't understand it. Sir Callum and Ethan just seem to put no effort into it at all. They make passenger work look so easy. The engines don't tease Sir Callum and Ethan about their special boiler tubes now. They wish they were as strong and as powerful as them instead. The White Tortoise and the Orange Hare. Robert, the White Intercity passenger train, is the fastest locomotive on the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway. All day long he runs up and down and all over the railway, picking up and dropping off passengers at each station. He hardly ever gets tired out, even though he gets up very early each morning to go and collect his passengers and take them to work. Just watch. He's going to get up really early to go and get his passengers. There, you see, it's early morning, and Robert is getting up very early to go and get his passengers. See, he never gets tired out. And off he goes on his first run of the day. And he doesn't get back from his last run of the day until quite late at night. He only gets about 8 hours of sleep each night. But regardless, he still hardly ever gets frustrated or stressed from his busy life. Just as long as he is happy, he won't let Mr. Eric down. But the happiest Robert has ever felt in his life was one particular sunny day about 1 week after a new locomotive arrived on the railway. And at the time, Robert thought it would replace him. One day, Robert was feeling especially happy. Suddenly, he noticed that the points were set against him. He had no choice but to stop. What could possibly... What on earth is going on? These points aren't usually set against me on this fine day. Suddenly, Robert heard a horn that he never heard before in his life. Then the rails began to rumble and a strong wind began to pick up. Then Robert heard a faint and fast clickety-clack, almost as if something was coming towards him. It got louder and louder and louder, and then, all of a sudden, a streak of orange shot right past his eyes. It rattled round the next bend and disappeared, and then everything went quiet again. Rattling axles! What was that? Robert soon found out. Later on, when he pulled into Redcliff station, he saw what had caused the orange streak standing in the bypass loop at the station. He stopped in the platform to drop his passengers and went over to see what it was. Who are you? Glad you asked, Robert, said a familiar voice. It was Mr. Eric. Robert, this is Vitesse. He is a high-speed passenger train, just like you, and he has come all the way over from France for trials. If his trials are successful, then he will be here to stay, permanently. He will then be starting his very own non-stop high-speed passenger service between Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Junction. I'm sure he'll be very reliable and will be here to please all of our passengers. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going back into my office to do some paperwork. See you later, Robert. And with that, Mr. Eric disappeared into his office to do his very important paperwork. So, you're the one known as Robert, eh? Indeed I am, and you must be the one known as Vites. So far, I am liking it here, but if you and your friends better not ruin it for me whilst I'm here, okay? Okay, but equally you had better not steal my passengers and my reputation on this railway, and you had better not replace me either. Ugh, fine. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm off on my next test one. Au revoir, lobby boy! Arrogant show-off. Later that night, in the loco yard, all of the other engines had seen Vites travelling fast around the railway, and were very impressed by his high-speed technology. You're incredible, you're very fast and modern. I know, you look like you'll be capable of speeds of up to something like 200 miles an hour. 200? On this railway? You'd end up in a field if you tried that. Isn't there some high-speed rail project that's happening right here in the UK that's going to enable speeds of up to 200 miles an hour possible? Oh no, don't even bring that up. Oh yes there is. Oh no, now I see directly where this is heading. It's a little thing I like to call don't H stop S. If you say one more word, I swear to God I'm going to scream so loud it's going to make your fuel tanks 2. We are very sorry, but Train Lover 16 Studios is currently experiencing technical difficulties. We do not know how long it's going to be to repair these, but please be patient as it might take a while. Thank you for your cooperation. Yes, go away. I'm recording. You just had to take this conversation to the next level, didn't you? Why even reference that pointless and over-expensive project after all? Oh, I mentioned it deliberately, just to annoy you. Well, don't ever do it again. It's a horrible idea. Oh yeah? Well, I think it's an amazing idea. You take that back right now! Never! Yes, sir! That's not even a word! Hey, you two, can you please quit your shenanigans? That topic is not important right now. We're talking about Vites. He's going to steal my passengers, I just know it! No, I won't. I'm just here to start a very important non-stop express passenger service. Yeah, and you'll be stealing my passengers in the process. I will then be sent away from here and scrapped. No, you won't. Yes, I will. No, you won't. Yes, I will. No, you won't. Yes, I will. Quiet, please, quiet. Thank you. Now, I have come down here tonight to make a very exciting announcement. Douglas Pump, the famous billionaire, and his wife are coming to our railway on a very important visit, and they have asked for a very special train to take them for a trip around the railway. And I think that it is only appropriate that Vites takes the train to our special guest to see our newest and fastest engine. Me? Take Douglas Pump, the famous billionaire? Yes, sir! Of course. The only reason Mr. Eric has chosen you is because he thinks you're 10 times better than me. Of course he does. Even if I do steal your passengers, I will still be far more reliable than you will ever be. No, I won't. Yes, you will. No, I won't. Yes, you will. No, I won't. Okay, that's enough, you two. I know just how to settle your argument. Now, I don't usually approve of this sort of thing on this railway, but I think it's our only option. I think the only way to settle your argument is if you both have a race. Really, sir? A race? Yes, Robert. A race. 4 o'clock tomorrow at Redcliff Station. The winner will receive a brand new coat of paint. Get prepared and be there. Now get some sleep, you two. It's going to be a very busy day for both of you tomorrow. Good night now. I'm off home. Bring it on, loser! The next day at around 3:30 p.m, the very important passengers arrived. Mr. Eric greeted them warmly by the hand and told them a little bit about the railway. Shortly afterwards, Vitesse cruised slowly into the platform and stopped to welcome them too. Then the very important passengers got on board. They had their own personal bar attendant too, to give them a drink whenever they wanted any. Isn't this exciting, Douglas? Having a race on a train with another train? I know, my dear, it really is exciting. Then Robert arrived for the start of the race. Good afternoon, Vitesse. You ready to lose? Ha! In your dreams, Slowcoach. Back in France, I was the fastest train of my type, capable of speeds of up to... Okay, I get it. But I'm still going to win. Alright, Robert and Vitesse. The race is about to begin. But first, let me explain a few rules. There will be no cutting, no cheating, no blocking the line, and no pushing or shoving. Well, that's all from me for now. May the best engine win. Good luck, Vitesse. You're going to need it. Okay, but just to let you know, I am not going to lose today. Well, we will soon find that out, won't we? Okay then, let the race commence. Ready? Set. Go! And Vitesse pulled away so quickly Robert was left with dust in his eyes. Ugh! I'm all covered in Vitesse's dust and now he's left me far behind. I have to catch up to him. And Robert pulled out of the station as quickly as he could. Ha ha! I've won already! Vitesse sped out onto the main line and disappeared into the distance. Robert was fast approaching the Betstate flyover. He pulled his heavy coaches slowly but surely up the hill. His wheels were slipping furiously, but at last he reached the top. He could now see Vitesse in the distance and tried as hard as he could to catch up with him. Vitesse had to stop at Guinea Bridge Junction. Douglas and Helen wanted to buy some tea and cakes from the station cafe. Robert was soon in view of the station. Hurry up, Slowcoach! We can't have you finishing too far behind me! But some of the passengers had heard about the race and they all cheered for Robert. This made him feel very happy and confident, and so he accelerated away down the line. But then, Douglas and Helen finished their tea and got back on board. And Vitesse was off again in the flash. He roared through the junction and up the other track. I'm the fastest and best. I'm the fastest and best, he said as he raced through the junction. Later on, Vitesse had to stop again. Douglas and Helen wanted to take some photographs of the countryside. Douglas set up his camera. Vitesse was feeling rather tired, and he slowly and softly closed his eyes. Meanwhile, Robert was passing over the junction just west of Redcliff. He had almost won the race. Later on, Douglas and Helen had just finished taking photos and were back on board. Vitesse, this is your conductor speaking. It's time to be off again. Let's go. But nothing happened. Vitesse was dreaming of victory. He didn't hear the conductor's radio call. Vitesse, this is your conductor speaking. It's time to be off again now. But still nothing happened. Vitesse, please wake up! It's time to go now! At last, Vitesse woke up. He started to panic. He was worried Robert was going to win, so he took off at what seemed like the speed of sound. But when he got back to Redcliff, he realised that it was already too late. Robert was already there and everyone was cheering for him. He had officially won the race. What took you so long, slow coach? I thought you were one of the fastest trains in the world. Oh, the sheer embarrassment and anger of it all! That night in the loco yard, most of the engines were rooting over Robert's victory. Congratulations, Robert! You really are a real credit to our railway. Agreed. You may be slower than Vites, but as we all know from the famous story of the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race. You're too righty. You're far too right.
Quiet, please, quiet!
Thank you. Today, Robert was the winner of the big race. So for that, Robert, you have definitely won your new coat of paint. We are all very proud of you, Robert, and you really have been a true credit to the railway today. Very well done indeed. Vites was proper sulky in his siding that night. He didn't stop complaining about his loss until deep into the next day. Vites and Brian. All the trials on Vites went without a hitch, and when the half-term holidays came, the new engine had already proved his value. As previously stated, he was a lot faster than the others, and people even came to the railway on purpose to see him. They were all very impressed by his speed and praised him a lot. Unfortunately, this went straight to his turbine, and he became even more conceited than before, and the other engines did not like this at all. But nonetheless, Vites continued to provide his non-stop passenger service all over the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway. But one day, Vites was going to find out why being conceited is not a good thing after all. That morning, Robert was feeling impatient. He was wearing his new coat of paint that he had won after winning the race with Vites and was longing for everyone to see it. The other engines were still dozing. But Robert wasn't. The signalman should be here by now to change the points and let me out of my siding so I can go and collect my passengers. What on earth is he doing? He's probably still at home, in bed, sleeping.
What? Sleeping? But that means I'll be late! The passengers are waiting, and if I'm not there in 10 minutes they will get very cross and call us a bad railway. Then they will just have to take the bus and I will have no passengers today!
Ha! Rubbish! It's still early, you know, Robert. You just want to show off today.
No, I don't!
Shut up, Robert. No one cares. I'm still mad at you for winning the race when I should have been the winner. Well, too bad, so sad, you lost and I won the new coat of paint, and there is nothing you can do to change that. Just accept that now and I promise you we will all be happy for the rest of our currently miserable lives. And carefree too. No, I will never accept it and you can't make me.
Fine, don't accept it, but that means that all of our lives are now going to be miserable forever thanks to you.
Ugh, will you just be quiet now? No, you be quiet. 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 Just then, they heard a slow clickety-clack and a small yellow diesel shunter roll into the loco yard. None of the locomotives have ever seen him before. The diesel shunter stopped, the door opened, and out stepped Mr. Eric! Good morning, everyone. Now, I bet you're wondering who this is. Well, I will tell you all now. This is Brian. He is a shunting engine who has come to our railway to do emergency shunting and standby work. He used to work in a chocolate factory near Bristol, helping out on the production line and taking short trainloads of chocolate down from the factory to the nearby mainline junction, where the chocolate was transferred to be shipped all over the country. But a few years ago, the chocolate factory closed down due to health code violations within the factory buildings. The factory was fenced off for demolition, and Brian was placed at the very back of the demolition site and left to rust away. Or so he thought. Our railway has been in need of a shunting engine for a while now, and I went looking for one, and I found Brian at the former chocolate factory site, and so I purchased him off the chocolate company. Then he was sent off to Southampton for restoration, and he was only just arrived to the railway earlier this morning, and here he is now. He does not yet know his way around the railway, so please be nice to him and make him feel welcome. I will now leave him here so you can chat to him all and get to know you. See you later, everyone. Hi everyone, can't wait to start work here. I'm sure you're all very friendly and will make me feel welcome here. Well, actually, I'm rather suspicious about you.
Oh, and why is that? I'm just a little worried about you.
Well, it's nice that you are concerned about me, but you have nothing to worry about. I'm fine. Now, if you will excuse me, I have to go and start work now. See you all later. That's not what I meant when I said that! Brian was soon put through his paces. He surprised all the other engines with his strength, and he was very reliable and friendly. Now, the other engines didn't have to go and fetch their coaches and wagons. They could just turn up at the station and find them there, or they could just wait in the rolling stock yard for them. Now enjoy the rest of this montage of Brian's shunting work.
Cinders and ashes, there's only one thing to do. Put aside your worries and just
Everyone was very happy with Brian, and they welcomed him thoroughly.
there they go, building together, all together. Diesel works,
Well, everyone that is, except for Vites. Vites did not like Brian at all. Hey, Brian, why are you stealing my prime and fay? Hey, that's not fair! I've done no such thing to any other engine in my life, so why am I now all of a sudden doing it to you? Because I once had attention and respect from the other engines on this railway, and then you arrived and took it all away from me.
No, I did not! The other engines like me because I'm really useful, and so are they. You can be really useful too, you know. Any engine can if they believe in themselves.
Hey, I am really useful. I wasn't suggesting that you weren't. Huh, of course you were. Now, if you will excuse me, I'll be on my way. I'm 100 times useful than all you will ever be. See you later, squat. Oh, well, you don't have to be so rude about it. I hear that. Vites was in a bad mood as he took his passengers down the track. He sped along the line and soon reached Guinea Bridge Junction. But when he arrived, he saw Peter in platform 2. He needed to have a long and hard talk with Vites. Vites, I heard all about your little chat with Brian. Why'd you have to be so mean and rude to him? I was not being mean and rude to him. He is stealing my pride and fame on this railway. Yeah, that's because he is a new engine and we all love and respect him. Maybe you should learn to love and respect him too. Well, how about instead of listening to you, I do the exact opposite of what you just said? Why, you little... Just then, Vites's conductor blew his whistle and Vites thought he better get away from Peter. Blah blah blah, yes, I don't want to hear it. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go now. Goodbye! Ugh, honestly, that Vites... As Vites continued to speed down the track, he completely forgot about what Brian and Peter said. Soon he began to climb the Bexgate flyover. His train was very full that day, so it was heavier than normal, and therefore it was very hard work for Vites to pull his coaches up the hill. But soon he reached the top. Heavy trains would usually halt here to pin down their brakes. Vites had been told this soon after arriving on the railway and should have remembered this. "Wait, Vites, wait," said the conductor through the radio, but Vites didn't hear him. He was too busy thinking about what he would say to Brian when they next met. Too late, he saw where he was and tried to stop, but he was already on the downhill slope. Oh! At this point, Vites said a French word, which if translated into English, would turn out to be rather inappropriate. The French word Vites said should be left to the viewer's imagination. Vites was pushing all of his strength into the weight of the coaches, but it was no use. They pushed him right down the hill. The conductor tightened the air brakes on the coaches to try and help Vites slow down. Vites was putting every ounce of strength and power he had against the coaches. Together, Vites and the conductor managed to slow the train down. But it wasn't enough to avoid disaster. Because up ahead was the abandoned Vraden City freight depot, which lay on a sharp curve by some points. Vites shut his eyes and waited for the inevitable to happen. And now everything is in slow motion. Vites is about to crash. He's coming down. He's gonna crash. Watch it, buddy. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, that's gotta hurt. Oh, I kind of felt that. Luckily, no one was hurt. Vites's rear two coaches and guards van managed to stay on the rails and the conductor braked them to a stop. But it was still quite a mess. Vites lay miserably on his side. Why didn't I listen to Brian and Peter? Why? I tried to warn him, but all he did was accuse me of doing something I hadn't done, and he was very rude to me. I think we should just leave him there and scrap him on the spot to teach him a lesson. Brian had been asked to rescue Vites with Colin for the maintenance crane, but he was still mad at Vites for being so rude, therefore he was refusing to move.
Come on, Brian! We need to rescue Vites anyway. He may have been rude, but that doesn't mean we should scrap him.
No, Mr. Eric. I'm sorry to disoblige, but Vites should stay there to get what he deserves. I'm ashamed of you, Brian. Think of the passengers. How are they going to get home if someone doesn't help them? Oh dear. I forgot about that. I'm sorry once again, Mr. Eric. Freddy is quite right. We must help the passengers. And Brian roared into life.
Rude! 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 Rude!
When I'm on the road.
Meanwhile, Vites was still lying there on his side. He was feeling very ashamed and he couldn't speed down the tracks now. Oh dear, everyone is now going to mock me at how silly I've been today. At last, Brian arrived on the scene and pushed the unhurt coaches out of the way. as well as Colin.
Looks like clear skies ahead. When I'm on the road.
He separated them on different tracks, then he took the coaches up to the passengers to take them back to Redcliff.
Sing the road song. I wanna sing it all day long. Let's all sing the road song. Let's all sing along.
He worked very hard with this,
Anybody know any?
but at last he reached Redcliff and the passengers got off. Then he shunted the empty coaches into Vitesse's siding and went back for Vitesse. Collins soon lifted the derailed coaches back onto the rails. Then, groaning and straining like mad, he managed to lift Vitesse back onto the rails. Then Brian coupled him back up to the coaches and they all set off home. Brian then pushed Vitesse back into his siding with the other two coaches and left him. A mechanic then came to clean and repair Vitesse, and Vitesse was taken off all duties for the rest of the day. At last evening came, and as a reward for all his hard work, Brian was allowed to sleep with the other locomotives that night, so he chose to sleep with Vitesse in his siding that night. Hey, Brian, thank you for rescuing me today. I'm sorry I was rude to you and doubted your capabilities. Oh, that's alright, Vitesse. I forgive you. I wish all diesel shunters were like you. Can we please be friends? Of course we can be friends, Vitesse. We will clean up the remains of that abandoned freight depot first thing tomorrow. After all, it is defunct now, so who needs it? Agreed, Brian. More than agreed. And from that day to this, they have always and always will be friends for many more years to come. What shall we do with the drunken engine? Ethan and Sir Callum, the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway's two steam locomotives, enjoy pulling the picnic fly train all around the railway each year, from early April until the end of September. Their train is usually most popular throughout the summer months of June, July and August. Usually, the two steam engines will enjoy the double popularity of their own train during these 3 months, but this year it was very different. For some strange reason, the Picnic Flyer had far more passengers this year than any other previous year since it started back in 1976. Due to this, Mr. Eric had scheduled many more trains, so all the extra passengers would not avoid disappointment if their train was full. Now this meant keeping the passengers happy, but this meant Ethan and Sir Callum had to work harder than ever before. And now this meant that whenever they had finished one journey... Take it away, Michelangelos!
It was time for another to begin. Never mind, he puffed. I like a good long run to stretch my wheels.
Okay. Good, Michelangelos, good. Even so, the two, by the end of the day, the engines felt rather tired from the extra work. One night, they returned home and they both felt really sleepy and tired. Ethan, can you believe how hard we've worked today? No, I can't. My wheels are aching so much and I feel worn right down to pieces. I hope we never have to work that hard ever again. Yes, agreed. I feel like I could sleep for a week. Just then, Mr. Eric arrived to give his two steam engines some very exciting news. Good evening, you two. I see that you are both very tired out from today's work. Yes, we are, Mr. Eric. We both feel like we could sleep for a week, or more even. And that's exactly the reason I have come down to talk to you both. I understand very well that at the moment there is more than enough work for you both on this railway, so I have ordered a brand new steam locomotive from the USA. However, because the USA is such a long way from here, the new steam engine won't be arriving for quite a few months, maybe not even until early next year. So I have arranged for a steam engine to come down from Scotland to work with you both temporarily and on loan from his railway in Scotland. He will then go back home when the new American steam engine arrives. The Scottish engine, on the other hand, will be arriving tomorrow. They'll start with you both the very next day. Now, how does that sound? Sir Callum and Ethan were both very pleased and grateful with this wonderful news, and promised Mr. Eric to give the Scottish engine a big welcome. The following evening, the two engines were sitting in their sidings when the Scottish engine arrived. He was painted white all over, and his vigorous puffing made him seem grumpy and bad-tempered.
Hey there, mates! The name's Jack, and you must both be Sir Callum and Ethan.
Why, we are indeed, Sir Callum and Ethan, Jack.
I just like to ask a quick question. Why is this such a small siding? This won't do it all for a big express engine like me. At my home railway, we get big long sheds to protect us from getting battered by the weather. Your controller obviously couldn't afford those. I'm much too smart for this old dump. Hey! I'm just as big as you, and both me and Ethan think our sidings are nice, so I suggested you just get used to it.
Yes, it's clear to both of us that you have a lot to learn throughout your time on this railway, Jack.
Now then, another question for you both. What's the rubbish over there? Shh! That's not rubbish! That's David! He's one of the most important locomotives on this railway!
And he whispered to David, "I'm sorry about Jack, David. He seems upset and grumpy now, but I'm sure it's just because he is very tired after his long journey to get here. He has come all the way from the Highlands of Scotland, you know, and I'm sure that in the long run he'll turn out to be quite nice and friendly in the end." Dave felt sorry for Sir Callum and Ethan, having to deal with Jack's negative rambling all night long. Even Vitas was a little worried about Jack.
Even I'm not that conceited.
"Now then, Jack," said the fireman next morning, "wake up, come along, it's time I got you ready for work."
Ugh, I'm tired, mate. Let Ethan or Sir Callum go. They'd love it.
"No, Mr. Eric's orders, you're first." And with that, Jack's fireman took some old newspaper and wood and lit Jack's fire. Afterwards, he checked his cold and water levels, oiled his pistons and other mechanical parts, and then, as soon as Jack's pressure had reached 200 psi, he was ready to go. He moved out to go fetch the coaches. Brian was busy shunting, so he couldn't help him get the coaches, so Jack had to fetch his own, but he was not impressed with them at all.
Ugh, whatever next? These aren't coaches. They're box fans.
Oh! What a horrid engine!
Please, girls, be quiet. This is not what I'm used to.
And with that, Jack pulled out of the rolling stock yard with the coaches and headed towards Redcliff station. He had to stop in the bypass loop to load supplies so the passengers could be loaded on board, and their supplies. He rolled into the loop just as Dennis arrived. He had just returned from his morning rush hour passenger run and was just pulling into the platform to let his last passengers of the morning off.
Hello there, mate. Who are you?
I'm Dennis. Who are you?
I'm Jack, mate. I'm the new steam engine from Scotland. I have heard all about you. You pull a lot of passenger trains, don't you? So do I, but I'm used to Kirby Express coaches, not these box vans. Do you have Kirby coaches, mate? Oh yes, I see you do. We must have a chat sometime. Sorry I can't stop. I must get time, you know, mate.
And then Jack's conductor blew his whistle and Jack puffed away, leaving Dennis at a loss for words.
Come along, come along, come along, come along. Box vans, box vans, box vans, box vans. We'll pay 'em out, we'll pay 'em out, we'll pay 'em out, we'll pay 'em out.
Clouds of smoke and steam filled the air as Jack huffed and puffed along the line. Soon they reached Guinea Briggs Junction station to pick up their passengers. Jack had been assigned to take the train up and over the Bexgate flyover, which of course was very steep. This gave the coaches their chance to pay Jack out for being so rude to them. As they started out of the station again, the coaches made their plan. Hold back! Hold back! Hold back! Hold back! And their couplings tightened as they started to go up the flyover. Jack was struggling to pull the train. His wheels were spinning and he was straining so much he thought the coupling would break. At last he ran out of energy and couldn't pull the train any further. He just ground to a halt and stopped halfway up the hill. Hi! I can't do it, mate! I just can't do it! I'm used to sensible Kirby Express coaches, not these silly bumpy box vans! The fireman went to see the conductor to see what he could do to get them started again. Hey, Elliot, why do you think we stopped? Well, Dan, I think the coaches are up to something. Let's bring the train back down to a level piece of line, grit up the rails with a bit of sand, and then Jack can try again and hopefully he can get us up the hill and over to Redcliff. Sounds good to me. And so it was arranged. Once Jack was brought back down on a level piece of line and the rails were properly gritted up, he started to pull the train again. He made a tremendous effort. The coaches tried to drag him back, but it was no use. And before the coaches knew it, they were at the top. I've done it! I've done it! I've done it! But the coaches were not happy and they wanted revenge, so they started to push Jack down the other side. He was so surprised he tried to slow them down. He did manage to slow them down just enough to avoid coming off the tracks, but they were still going pretty fast, and the coaches didn't stop pushing him until they reached Redcliff Station. But when they stopped in the platform, the passengers were furious and thought it was all Jack's fault. Who does this idiot engine think he is?
Racing around this railway like that?
Agreed. Is this engine crazy? He could have killed us all. Yes, indeed. As passengers, we do not want to be bounced around like peas in a frying pan. Jack heard all of these comments, and he was furious with the coaches for making him speed down the tracks, and for the rest of the day he was in a very bad mood. He was storming around the railway in a huff, constantly being rude to the passengers, his coaches, and the other engines, and creating a very, very frightening image for himself. When Mr. Eric found out about this, he was furious and was very severe to Jack in the loco yard that night. You, Jack, are a troublesome engine. You are rude, conceited, and much too big for your buffers.
Please, sir, it wasn't me. It was those stupid coaches. They were the ones who pushed me.
That's enough, Jack. Those coaches held you back and pushed you because you were being rude to them. None of this would have ever happened if you weren't such a rude engine. And I promise you, Jack, if anything like this ever happens again during your stay on my railway, I will have you sent straight home to your railway in Scotland. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, Mr. Erickson.
Jack was very impressed with Mr. Eric's scolding and behaved unusually well for several days. Goodbye, Glumpface. Jack had now been on the Redcliff and Guinea Ridge Railway for about 2 weeks, after coming down from Scotland to help Ethan and Sir Callum, but after Mr. Eric had scolded him for being so rude to everybody, Jack had been behaving unusually well for quite a few days. However, this couldn't last forever, as he will soon find out. That morning, he took the picnic flyer train on 2 return runs to Redcliff and back. He was cross that morning. It was Sir Callum's turn to take the train, but Mr. Eric had made Jack go instead. And he was still cross when they returned to Guinea Ridge Junction on their second run of the day. It was around midday when Jack returned, and Ethan was supposed to take over the train for the third run of the day, and he did. Once Jack had stopped in the platform, his fireman uncoupled him, and they moved slowly forward. Then Ethan moved out of platform 2 and coupled up to the coaches. Then Jack moved back into platform 2, and a few minutes later... the conductor blew his whistle and Ethan was off. Once Ethan was out of sight, Jack was longing for a rest, but his fireman thought otherwise. We'll leave the station now, Jack, and fetch some freight wagons from the rolling stock yard back at Redcliff.
Freight wagons? Freight wagons?
Yes, Jack, freight wagons. And so they set off for the Redcliff rolling stock yard, but Jack was not happy about this at all. Soon they arrived at Redcliff, the rolling stock yard, to pick up his goods train. He hated goods wagons, especially since he was an express engine. As he was being coupled up, the wagon started to sing rude songs. A root toot toot, come on let's go, we're gonna be late cause you're too slow.
Shut up, you stupid wagons!
And he gave the freight wagons a great bump.
From now on, I will do that every time you start singing.
And he puffed away in a huff with the angry wagons clattering behind him. The wagons didn't stop singing though, they just carried on, and Jack got more and more angry as they travelled along and more annoyed the more they sang. He tried to bump them to make them shut up, but he was bumping them so hard that he was weakening and damaging the rails. At last they buckled. He lurched, bumped, and stopped. His fireman got out. Told you! He had indeed buckled the rails and had derailed just before the level crossing at Raiden City Station. Jack's fireman telephoned for Mr. Eric. He came up at once with Sir Callum, some workmen, and Colin the maintenance crane. After Colin had set to work, Mr. Eric needed to have a few words with Jack. Okay, Jack, this really is your last warning. If you do anything stupid again on my railway, then you will definitely be sent home to Scotland. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, sir.
After Mr. Eric had left, Jack's fireman came to see him. Come along now, Jack. Let's get you back on the rails. The next day, Mr. Eric was standing on the platform of Redcliff Station checking the weather on his tablet.
Okay, let's have a look at the weather for today. BBC weather, Redcliff. Oh dear, there's a thunderstorm coming. I think I should warn my engines.
So Mr. Eric called Brian over to the loco yard so he can hear his important announcement. Hi everyone! Mr. Eric called me down here. He told me he had a very important announcement to make. I wonder what it could be. I don't know, Brian, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Shh, shh, he's coming. Let's all listen carefully. Good morning, everyone. Now, you're all probably wondering why I've come down here to talk to you all today. Well, it's because I have some bad news. There's a thunderstorm coming. A severe weather warning has been issued for both Redcliff and Guineabridge, putting the entire railway and the surrounding area in danger. Excuse me for interrupting you, sir, but when exactly is the storm getting here? Oh, don't worry, Peter. The storm's not due to come until 8 o'clock tonight, so I have cancelled all trains after that time. However, I want you all to complete your work as quickly as possible today, so you can all get back here safely before the storm comes. Does everyone understand me? Yes, Mr. Eric! Good. Then Mr. Eric walked over to Jack. Oh, and Jack?
Yes, Mr. Eric?
That does include you, you know.
Fine.
So everyone worked extra hard that day to get their work done before the storm came. Well, most of them anyway. But regardless, everyone, including Jack, managed to get home safely before the storm came. And Mr. Wright was very pleased with all of them. Jack, why didn't you reverse into your siding tender first?
No time to turn around, sir. I wanted to get in here before the storm comes near.
I see. But anyway, is everyone back here safely now? Looks like it to me, sir. Okay, good. Right now, I'll just go and...
Hang on just a cotton-picking minute.
Where are Freddy and Sir Callum? I don't know, sir. I thought I saw them when I was looking. Oh no, they must still be out on the main line somewhere. And indeed, Mr. Eric was right. Freddy had a leak in his fuel tank, so he had run out of fuel and was stranded out on the main line near Guineabridge Junction. And Sir Callum had been held up at Guineabridge Junction station with his empty coaches due to the storm. We need to find out exactly where they are, right now, or else we might have to... Mr. Eric answered his radio. Yes? I see. Oh dear. Don't worry, I'll tell them. Over and out. What was that all about, sir? That was the conductor of Freddy's train. He has run out of fuel due to a leak in his fuel tank and is now stranded out on the main line near Guineabridge Junction. And as for Sir Callum, he's been held up at Guineabridge Junction station due to the adverse weather. And wait a minute! Sir Callum's goods train is still at the rolling stock yard! He was supposed to leave with it 3 hours ago! One of you is going to have to take his goods train for him and bring in Freddy some fuel so he can get back home, and we also need to find out if Sir Callum is okay. So, any volunteers who want to do it? All the engines remained silent. Surely they weren't going out in this weather. No one wants to do it? Okay, I guess I have no choice but to pick on someone. Let's see. Jack! You're already facing in the right direction, so you can do it.
Me? Go out in this weather? No way! I'll get cold, soaked, and miserable, and I won't feel safe.
Jack, do it now!
Fine!
And Jack puffed away to find Sir Callum's train. When he arrived, Brian was shunting the fuel wagon onto the train so they could be taken to Freddy so he could be refueled and have the ability to get back home safely. He had just finished and was now moving out of the way so Jack could couple up. As Jack was backing down onto the train, Brian came alongside him. Now you be careful out there tonight, Jack. The tracks are very slippery from all this rain and the strong winds could blow you right off the Bexgate flyover.
I don't need a smelly little diesel shucking squirt like you tell me what to do.
And Jack puffed away with his freight train, leaving Brian feeling rather hurt. Meanwhile, Freddy was still stuck out on the main line without any fuel to move with. Ugh, this weather is miserable. I hope my fuel gets here soon. I just want to get back home and back to my nice warm and dry siding. Back at Redcliff, Jack was still hanging out with his trucks, but they were making him angry. Chug, 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 you chuff and tug, but you're so rusty you can't even puff.
Stop that right now, you stupid wagons!
And he gave them a very hard bump. The wagons were cross with Jack. They were going to pay him out, so when they reached the Bexgate flyover, they held Jack back. Jack tugged and strained and yanked them over the top of the hill, but that was his mistake. The wagons were now pushing him down the other side, and Jack was whistling long and loud. Freddy heard this whistle. Hi, conductor, there's another train coming, and I don't think it's gonna stop in time before it reaches us. Jack rounded the corner and saw a man waving a red tail lamp frantically, and in the horror of seeing the tail lamp, he braked as hard as he could, but it was too late! And all was silent. Jack had crashed into the back of Freddy's freight train, and I'm sorry to say, the damage had been done, as you will soon find out. The next morning, the storm had passed, and Brian brought Colin the maintenance crane to help the track gangers clear up the mess, and they had quite a hefty amount of work to do. The first 3 wagons of Jack's train had derailed completely, and Jack himself had been heavily damaged. Coal and other goods had spilled out everywhere. The last wagon of Freddy's train had also derailed completely, but the rest of it remained unharmed. Jack's fireman, however, had been thrown from the cab during the impact and had landed in the coal hopper of Freddy's train. He suffered severe injuries and was completely paralysed. Luckily, though, he survived and had to be put in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But, I'm sorry to say, Freddy's conductor, the man who had been waving the red baton just before Jack crashed, would not survive the accident. During the impact, every bone in his body from just below his chest down was crushed. He was airlifted to hospital, but the medics could do nothing to save him, and he died due to severe blood loss later that evening. Getting back to the rescue operation now, the wagons of Jack's train, which had not derailed, had to be cleared out of the way so Jack could be rescued. Thankfully though, the fuel wagon of Jack's train remained unharmed, and Freddy was refueled and was able to make his way back home to his friends. When he arrived, he saw that they were talking about Jack's accident. I think that accident served him jolly well right for being so mean to us during his stay on this railway. What do you guys think? Yep, I completely agree with you, Sir Callum. He bloomin' well crashed into my train. I could have been seriously hurt, so I also think that he got what he deserved. And look, Brian's bringing him in now, or at least what's left of him. And indeed, Freddy was right. In came Brian with Jack's tender, some parts from Jack, and lastly Jack himself. It looked like that he was badly in disgrace. Mr. Eric now finally had a chance to speak to Jack. He did not look happy at all. I am disgusted by your actions you have performed during your time on this railway. Not just from last night, but all throughout. You've been very rude to the other engines, rolling stock, the passengers, and my staff as well. And last night's accident, which, by the way, you caused, and not the wagons, was perhaps one of the worst to ever happen on this railway in a long time. You also severely injured 2 of my employees, and they will now both have to be hospitalised. Let's just hope they don't die in hospital. Your time on this railway is now officially over. Now, Brian is going to take you to Guinea Bridge Junction Station, where you'll be transferred to the National Rail Network. Another engine will then take you with his freight train to Crewe Works, where you have extensive repairs done to you. Then you will make your own way back home to Scotland. Your controller, by the way, was not happy at all when I told him what you had done, and I hope he gives you just what you deserve when you get home. I knew your time on this railway wouldn't last forever. Goodbye, glump face. But Jack was very angry to hear all the other engines mocking him. This isn't over yet. You idiots haven't seen the last of me. I'll be back alright, and when I am back, I'm going to give you all a run for your money. I doubt you ever will be back, Jack. Goodbye, Jack! And Brian rolled away with Jack behind him. Mr. Eric came to see Jack, Ethan and Sir Callum later that evening. Hello, you two. I just wanted to thank you all for your hard work in the past couple of weeks. You both cope with Jack's rudeness brilliantly. We will not be seeing him back on this railway anytime soon. But I'm sorry to say, I've just received word that one of the 2 men who were involved with the accident sadly passed away about half an hour ago. Every bone in his body from his chest down has been crushed, and the medics could do nothing to save him, and I shall be attending his funeral in 2 weeks today. However, moving to a happier note, I've just received word that the American engine ship, you know, the one I ordered about 3 weeks ago, has just docked at Southampton Port, 2 weeks early. He will be arriving in 1 week today in Jack's wake. However, until then you will have to run the picnic fire train all by yourselves until the American engine gets here. Yes, well, it is rather sad that you've lost one of your employees, sir. But at least horrible old Jack's gone now, and another engine will be arriving in his wake in about 1 week. Yes, and we shall welcome this engine well, just as long as he isn't as rude as Jack was. And let's just hope that Jack never returns to this railway ever again. Do you think Jack will ever return to the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway? Well, my friend, only time will tell. The American Dream of Redcliff. Ethan and Sir Callum, the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway's 2 steam locomotives, were struggling very hard to keep up with the demand for traffic of the picnic fire. Ever since Jack had been sent away from Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway in disgrace, the other 2 steam engines had to cope on their own without any rest in between whatsoever. This resulted in them getting very worn out by the end of the day, and their trains were only going to get heavier from here on out and a lot busier, as the school summer holidays were coming. In fact, sometimes their trains would be so heavy that they stalled on the Bexgate flyover. As a result, another engine would have to come and help them up the hill. This would become very tedious and cause bad delays to the picnic flyer over time. A very tired and worn-out Ethan rolled slowly into his siding at Redcliff Loco Yacht. He wanted to have a quick chat with Sir Callum before going out like a light. Sir Callum, you know how Mr. Eric said another engine will be coming to help us in Jack's wake? Yes? Well, when is this engine getting here? It feels like such a long time since Mr. Eric told us about the American engine.
Supposed to know.
But I completely agree with you, Ethan. The sooner he arrives, the sooner we will both finally be able to have a much-needed rest. That is a very good question, you two. Oh, hello, Mr. Eric. Well, you two, I have got good news for you both. The American engine is almost here. He will be arriving tomorrow early in the morning, probably while you're both still asleep. However, unlike Jack, he is not here on loan. He is here to stay. Permanently. So Callum, I want you to work with him tomorrow morning so Ethan can have a well-deserved rest. You will get your well-deserved rest on the morning after tomorrow. After the two of you have got all the rest you deserve, Ethan and the American engine will take it in turns to help you pull the picnic flyer from then on. And if one is helping with the picnic flyer, the other will be doing freight work. Do you both understand me? Yes, Mr. Eric? Good. Now get some sleep, you two. You're both going to have a very busy day tomorrow. Now good night, you two. I'm off home. And pretty much as soon as Mr. Eric had gone, Ethan and Sir Callum fell fast asleep. The next morning, Sir Callum went over to the refuelling point to stock up on coal and water for the day. He was just about to be refueled when he noticed a steam locomotive that he had never seen before standing in the bypass loop at Redcliff Station. He wondered if that was the American engine. Fireman, do you think that's the new engine over there? Well, is he of an American design?
It looks that way from this angle. Then it's him.
So after Sir Callum's fireman had finished refuelling him, Sir Callum went over to the station to meet the new engine.
Hello there. Are you the new steam engine from America?
Why, yes I am, buddy. My name's Jacob, and you must be Sir Callum. I've heard all about you and your buddy Ethan. I hear you need a helping hand. Well, that's what I was built for. I'm very happy to be here to help. I've also heard about mean old Jack. He sounds like one of the rudest engines out there. Oh yes, he was very rude. And it's very nice to meet you, Jacob. You sound like a very kind and helpful engine. Just then, Brian arrived with the coaches for the day's picnic flyer train. He shunted them onto the back of Sir Callum, and his fireman went to couple him up. Oh, and this is Brian, our shunting engine. Brian, meet Jacob. Hi, Jacob. I'm looking forward to getting to know you.
Howdy, Brian. You're one of the cutest little switchers I ever done seen. Did you just call him a switcher? Yes. Back in America, we call shunters switchers.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's almost time for us to go now. Could you please go in front of me to couple up, please? Right on it, Sir Cal. And Jacob moved forward beyond the points and then carefully coupled up to the front of Sir Callum. Okay, Jacob, are we all ready to go?
Ready and raring, buddy.
Good. A couple of minutes later, the conductor blew his whistle and Sir Callum and Jacob were ready to go.
Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. All right. No need to rush.
As Jacob and Sir Callum travelled along, Jacob began to enjoy and comment on the countryside.
You know, Sir Cal, the United Kingdom has some of the most mighty fine scenery I ever done seen. Oh, well, it's very nice of you to say that, Jacob. Back in America, at least the parts I worked in, it's nothing but dusty, rocky, and just plain boring for my liking, with the exception of California, of course. But even the landscaping of good old Cali will never be a match for England.
Jacob! 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 We're meant to stop at this station! Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, right.
And Jacob braked as hard as he could. But when he stopped, he noticed that 2 coaches were beyond the platform.
Oops, my bad.
It's okay, Jacob. Everyone makes mistakes. Sir Callum's kind words made Jacob feel better, and so they reversed back into the station to let the passengers on. No one seemed to mind about Jacob's little mistake, so Jacob felt even better. A couple more minutes of waiting later, the conductor blew his whistle again, and Jacob and Sir Callum were off again. They had been asked by the conductor to stop at the top of the Bexgate flyover so the passengers could enjoy the view from the top. As they were slowing down, they noticed Robert waiting at the junction just below them. Hello, Sir Callum. Who's your friend? Oh, hi, Robert. This is Jacob. He's come from America to help out me and Ethan as Jack's permanent replacement.
Howdy, Robert. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you too, Jacob. I hope you're liking our railway so far. Oh, that's my conductor's whistle. I'm sorry, but I really must go. I don't know what Mr. Eric would do without me to run the majority of the passenger services on this railway. And Robert rolled away importantly. Later on, Sir Callum and Jacob passed the site of Vitesse's accident. The site had been fully cleared now and something was being built there. They ended their run and rested before setting off on their next run of the day. Jacob was still enjoying his time on the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway. When they got back after their second run, Mr. Eric was waiting for them. Hello, Jacob. Are you enjoying our railway so far?
I'm loving it here, sir. This is an incredible place.
Oh, well, that's good. You have proved yourself worthy of pulling passenger trains on this railway. Now you must learn how to handle freight trains. I want you and Sir Callum to uncouple from your train now and go to the nearest anti-siding so you can go to the rolling stock yard to collect your freight wagons. Ethan will then take your place with Sir Callum to run the trains for the afternoon while you take your freight train to Guinea Bridge Junction.
Why, of course, sir. I can handle any type of train, whatever the weather. I can do it in America, so I can do it here.
But what Jacob didn't know was that the wagons on the R&GR behaved extremely poorly compared to the ones on the Union Pacific. So Jacob and Sir Callum pushed the coaches back out of the way and moved forward to uncouple in a siding where they separated themselves on different tracks. Then Sir Callum waited for Ethan to come while Jacob ran off happily to find his wagons. Now the wagons on the R&GR are silly and noisy. They talk a lot and don't attend to what they are doing. And, I'm sorry to say, they play tricks on any engine who isn't used to their behaviour. Sir Callum knew all about how to handle the behaviour of the wagons. He warned Jacob to be careful just before he ran off, but Jacob was too excited to listen. yard manager fastened the coupling, and when the points changed, Jacob was ready. Conductor Jeremy blew his whistle. Jacob answered with 2 toots on his 5-chime whistle and started off, but the wagons weren't ready.
Oh, oh, oh! Wait, Jacob, wait!
But Jacob wouldn't wait.
Come along, come along. All right, don't fuss. All right, don't fuss.
Jacob began going faster and faster. He whistled long and loud as he rushed through Redcliff Station.
Faster, faster, faster.
Jacob was feeling very proud of himself, but the wagons grew crosser and crosser. At last, Jacob slowed down as they came to the Becksgate flyover. Steady now, Jacob, steady! As the train reached the top, Jacob began to put on his brakes.
We're stopping, we're stopping. No, no, go on, go on.
Before the firemen could stop them, the wagons had pushed Jacob down the hill and were rattling and laughing behind him. Poor Jacob tried desperately to stop them from making him go too fast.
Stop pushing, stop pushing.
But the wagons took no notice.
Go on, go on. There's the station. Oh dear, what shall I do?
They rattled straight through platform 2 and swerved round a bend. Jacob shut his eyes.
I must stop.
When Jacob opened his eyes, he noticed that he had stopped just inches from the points that were set against him. Any further and he would have derailed. There, watching him, was none other than Mr. Eric. Ah, Jacob, you're 15 minutes early. That's good, but why is that?
Oh, no, sir. I just delivered these wagons like you told me to, sir.
I see. Why did you come so fast?
I didn't mean to, sir. The wagons pushed me.
Well, have you ever pulled wagons before?
Well, yes, but the wagons back in America did not behave like that at all. They were very well behaved, and we did not have any trouble with them at all. By the way, sir, how did you get here before I did?
That's easy, Jacob. I just used magic.
That's a Mr. Bean reference, right?
Yes, it is. But anyways, it seems to me that you aren't used to the behaviour of the wagons on our railway. Therefore, I think you need a bit of practice. After handling mostly freight trains on this railway for the next few days, you should know almost as much about them as Sir Callum. Then I'm sure you'll be a really worthy member of our fleet after that.
Not that I'm suggesting that you aren't currently worthy of working on this railway. Yes, sir.
Then the Guinea Bridge Junction signalman changed the points and Jacob puffed slowly away back to the loco yard. He felt very silly. That night, in the loco yard, all the other engines thought it a great joke.
Ha! Fancy having those silly wagons push him down the hill. I know, right? That's the funniest thing to ever happen on this railway in a long time.
Jacob was furious with all the other engines mocking him, and this would make him an angry and conceited engine for the next few days. Luckily, though, this wouldn't last, as in a few days' time, Jacob would learn that arrogance is not a good thing. But that's... Jacob and the crude oil. Jacob had now been on the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway for about 5 days now, but after some wagons pushed him down the Becksgate flyover, the other engines had been mocking him for it. This made him an arrogant engine, and this story is all about how it died down in the end. It all started when David was taking a freight train which consisted of a fuel tanker. What David didn't know was that it was leaking and a huge splash of crude oil fell onto the tracks just before the level crossing at Raiden City, leaving the tracks very slippery and potentially causing disaster. In fact, disaster was inevitable. Later on, a lorry load of manure broke down on the level crossing and the driver had gone to call for a mechanic. But he had been gone too long to stop disaster from happening. Peter was coming down the line with a freight train bound for Guinea Bridge Junction. Suddenly, he saw the lorry on the level crossing and tried to stop, but his wheels just slipped on the oily rails. Peter couldn't stop in time. He crashed straight through the lorry and came to a screeching halt, and by the time he had come to a stop, he was covered in brown, thick, smelly cow manure. Workmen were soon on the scene to help clear up the mess, along with Mr. Eric. I cannot believe it! How could something like this happen? Please, sir, it's not my fault. The rails were slippery and I couldn't stop in time. Now, Peter, don't worry about it. This accident was no one's fault. We didn't know that the oil tanker on David's train was leaking, and we didn't know that this lorry was going to break down on a level crossing. So it's no one's fault. Just try to relax now, okay, Peter? Yes, sir. Just then, Jacob chuffed past with a picnic flyer. He recoiled in horror when he smelt Peter covered in the cow manure.
Ew, what is that awful smell?
Well, Jacob, I think it's the manure, and it seems to be coming from Peter over there.
Well, Peter needs to get himself cleaned up as soon as possible. That manure is making him reek.
And Jacob continued on with his journey to Guinea Bridge. That night in the loco yard, Peter was being cleaned and everyone else was except Jacob was giving him sympathy. Don't worry, Peter. Like Mr. Eric said, it wasn't your fault. Yeah, you couldn't help any of the events that led up to your accident with the lorry. But Jacob didn't think it was very fair that the others were giving him sympathy.
Unbelievable! You guys give Peter sympathy when he crashes, but mock me when wagons push me down a hill?
Jacob, there is a big difference between something that causes someone pain and something that is funny. Peter's accident caused him a lot of pain today. That's why we are giving him sympathy. You, on the other hand, did not have any pain when the wagons pushed you down the hill on the Bexgate flyover.
I may have not had any physical pain, but I certainly had some mental pain. I felt very silly after the wagons pushed me, and you guys mocking me only made it worse.
Jacob, we didn't mean to mock you or cause you any mental pain. We were just trying to get you to see the funny side of your mishap. There is nothing funny about Peter's accident because he suffered physical pain when he crashed into that lorry. Also, he got dirty and smelly from it too. You, on the other hand, did not suffer any of those things with your wagon mishap. That makes it silly and funny. Why can't you just see the funny side of it?
I will never see the funny side of it. There is nothing funny about it. That incident caused me a lot of mental pain, and I want you lot to stop talking about it altogether. I'll have no more of it. Now, good night.
He'll never learn, will he? The next day, Jacob went to the rolling stock yard to pick up his first freight train of the day. While he was there, he met Brian. Hi, Jacob. How are you today?
not in the best of moods, Brian. I hate all these wagons teasing and harassing me. They can be so annoying sometimes. Oh, okay. Well, I hope you will be able to get them into order one day. I hope so too. Well, it bets me off. I don't want to be late, though I am probably going to be anyway because of these stupid wagons.
Okay then, see you later, Jacob. And Jacob puffed away with the badly behaved wagons in tow. Jacob was not kidding when he said the wagons were stupid. Jacob and the wagons really did not like each other at all. They were being so rough with him that they were denting his tender. By the time they reached Raiden's city, it was so damaged that the fireman had to fill all of the dents with some car body filler. Later on, he had to wait for Peter to come through with his passenger train. This gave Jacob a cheeky idea. He was going to mock Peter to see how he liked it, because he was jealous of Peter giving him sympathy from the others, whilst they would mock Jacob. So as Peter passed, Jacob said, "Ew, manure." But there was no comment from Peter as he rolled past.
Darn it! Well, I'll just have to keep doing it every time I see him until he gets fed up with it.
And that's just what he did. Every time he saw Peter, that's what he said to him. This went on for a few more days until finally Peter lost his patience. He was just waiting at Guinea Bridge Junction when Jacob steamed in. Ew, manure! Jacob, why are you painted in so many different colours?
Because I'm a very important engine, ready for anything. You never see my paint dirty.
Ah, well maybe you weren't ready for the wagons when they pushed you down the Bexgate flyover. Jacob's face turned red with rage. He was so cross with Peter for reminding him of that awful day for him. In fact, he was so cross that his steam pressure went up suddenly and his safety valve blew off.
Why, you little! Don't ever bring that up again! Or else!
Then Jacob puffed angrily away. When Jacob reached Redcliff, he left the coaches and got ready for his next train. It was a slow freight, stopping at every station to pick up and set down goods in the wagons. Jacob really hated slow freight trains more than he hated any other kind of freight train.
Dirty wagons from dirty sidings. Ugh!
Starting with only a few, he picked up more and more goods at each station till his train was fully loaded. At first the wagons behaved well, but Jacob bumped them so crossly that they were determined to get back at him. So on the return journey back to Redcliff from Guinea Bridge Junction, the wagons made their plan. Soon they were approaching the top of the Bexgate flyover. Normally, heavy freight trains such as Jacob would stop here to pin down their brakes. But Jacob was too stressed to remember this. The wagon's chance had come. They started bumping into each other, and with all their effort they pushed Jacob right down the hill. Go faster! Go faster! Push him! Shove him! Stop it at once! Stop it at once! And Jacob set his brakes as hard as he could with the help from the conductor who had the emergency brake on the last wagon. They raced straight past Robert. Slow down, Jacob! I can't! Then there was more trouble. Some faulty points diverted Jacob into the rolling stock yard. Jacob shut his eyes tight. He didn't dare look at what was coming next. Just up ahead of him was a train of crude oil waiting to be taken to Guinea Bridge Junction. Jacob was about to experience the worst accident he had ever had in his life. there was a bursting crash and something wet and slippery splashed all over Jacob. He had crashed right into the crude oil train and was brown from smokebox to tender. He was more dirty than hurt. But the oil wagons and some of Jacob's wagons were completely off the tracks. Luckily, Brian had heard the crash, and so he fetched Colin the maintenance crane, and they both soon tidied up the mess. Peter and David were also sent to help, and they came as quickly as they could. Well, 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 David, just look what we've got here. Whatever is that dirty object? Oh, well, that's Jacob, didn't you know? Oh, well, it's Jacob's shape, all right, but Jacob claims he's a very important engine, ready for anything, and that you never see his paint dirty. Jacob just pretended he hadn't heard. He was far too ashamed to even speak. David and Peter cleaned up the remaining mess, then they helped Jacob back to the station. When they got there, Mr. Out was waiting for them. Well done, David and Peter. Then he turned to Jacob. Fancy letting your wagons run away again, Jacob. I am surprised. I thought you would have learned how to control them by now.
But sir, it's not my fault. I was too stressed to remember to stop.
Oh, it's quite all right, Jacob. I knew that. But anyhow, you're not fit to be seen. You must be cleaned and repaired at once. And Peter, for all your hard work today, you shall receive a new coat of paint. Please, sir, can I have one too? All right then, David. I don't see why not. Oh, thank you, sir. The others will be very pleased for me and Peter. All Jacob could do was watch Peter and David run off happily to tell the others the good news for them, and it was clear to Mr. Eric that Jacob had indeed learned his lesson. Bum 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 bum, train number 16.